Welcome to this edition of Leading from the Library. I am so excited to be kicking off this new Future Ready Librarian podcast, especially welcoming my friend Josh. So welcome, Josh.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Shannon.
I know, I'm going to give you just to start a minute to introduce yourself.
Okay, yeah. So my name's Josh Stumpenhorst. I'm a Learning Commons director, which is, just a trendy, fancy way of saying librarian these days. I've been doing this for 4 years. I'm in a middle school building, 6-8, and I was an English and history teacher for 13 years prior to that. And I should have made the switch sooner because I love my job.
I love it. I was so excited when I remember seeing that you had become a librarian.
Mm-hmm.
And I was so excited because I remember looking on Twitter and following all these great things you were doing. I'm like, wait, Josh is a librarian? That's amazing.
I
So
came over.
You've added so much to our field. And I think the big thing that we all admire you so much for is all of the making that you do with your kids. And so I'm really excited to hear about that today. But just to start, I want to hear how it's going at school for you and what it looks like.
Yeah, so here in our district, we are 100% remote to start the year. And I feel like every district has, the phases or the steps or whatever. So we have 4 phases. And so we're in phase 1, which is full remote. So I'm teaching classes, moving into classes via Zoom, which is kind of what we're doing right now. And so we're doing, like I had classes this morning, and we're starting curbside pickup, which we didn't do in the spring. And it kind of killed me because I couldn't get, books into kids' hands. We use Sora, through Overdrive. So they had that option, but I know a lot of kids are like me. They got to have a book in their hands. So we're doing that, the curbside. And then we're also looking at ways in which we can send Makerspace kits home. Mm-hmm. We're still trying to figure that out because it is so new and everybody's, pretty sensitive about sharing equipment and sending things home. So we're trying to kind of navigate the suggestions from the state and from the district. But yeah, just trying to be with kids, even though I prefer them in person, but just even seeing their faces on Zoom it was real nice.
Yeah, I know. Isn't that the best? We're actually in person at Van Meter, but we have some remote learners too. And I know that last week when we went back to school, just not seeing the kids for so long and seeing them, like, they grew so much and they were so excited to be back together. And so it was just so fun. And
oh yeah,
I know that some people probably think too, like, I know there's been a lot of questions like on our Future Ready Librarian page of, you say that you're Zooming with the kids, but what does that look like as a librarian for you?
Yeah, so my setup is right in the middle of the library, and it's up against one of the bookshelves because you got to have a good backdrop, right? I'm currently in my green screen room because there's some groups that are doing some things out there with teachers right now. But typically I have my computer, I have a secondary monitor so I can have the Zoom, so I can see all the kids' faces, and then I share my screen so I can go through what I'm sharing with them. We use Canvas, so today I was going through Canvas. But I try to keep it pretty much the same as if they were in the library. I have just a stack of books, and I start talking the books and just saying, this is what I've been reading. A lot of the teachers are great. They'll ask, Josh, can you talk about historical fiction this week or this month? Because we're doing, a study in class on it. And that's a lot of what it is. And one of the pieces that I loved about my job is even after I would do that, the second half of the period, kids would typically be browsing books in the library and sitting and reading. And I missed that, being able to talk to a kid like, Mr. Stumpenhorst, help me find a book. And so what I've created is a Google form so kids can request a private meeting with me during their lunch or study hall. And I had one yesterday, and it's just, we have a one-on-one Zoom, and we just have a one-on-one Zoom. I put my computer on one of my carts, and I'm walking around the library with the kid, pulling books. What do you think about this one? Oh, that one's terrible. That one's terrible. Oh, this one's good. And then, so it's good. Just that interaction with the kids and the teachers, I definitely missed that in the spring. So getting that back has been nice. Even if it is virtual, we'll take what we can get right now.
Well, and I'm sure the kids love just being able, I love that you're offering that private time with them because kids, I think, really miss that. Like, especially our older kids really miss just being able to sit down and like talk to their teachers. And
Oh
have
yeah.
that one-on-one time. And so offering that is just a huge thing to kids, just to have those relationships, I think, is what we have to remember is the most
Mhm.
important thing.
Oh yeah, not just them. I missed it.
Me too. I know.
Just talking to a kid and and then they would be like, oh, that's the one I want. I'm like, are you sure? We can keep going. I could do this all day. Let's just keep chatting about books.
Oh, great. I think that's so awesome. So the books that they're checking out, like, is that how you're going to then do the curbside checkout, or
Yeah.
how do it
So
look for you?
our online system allows kids to reserve books on their own, but I'm trying to simplify the process for kids. I don't want them to have to go to 6 different places. So I just have one simple Google form that they can fill out saying, I know exactly what book I want. They just click a box, type the book title in, and it comes to me in a Google form. I get an email on my phone buzzing constantly all day today. Or they can select that personalized kind of reader's advisory. And so once I see that list, me and my assistant will just start pulling books. We check them out to the kid and we generate an email that goes home and says the book's been checked out. It'll be in the curbside. So we have a spot right inside our front entryway that's kind of a double door. And there's a table there and we just set it there with a receipt on it that has the kid's name. And they just come to the school during certain hours, pick them up, and they can drop them off when they're there. So
Oh, that's
we'll
great.
see how it goes. We're only on day 2 of it.
Yeah, I know for us last week, just starting that, and we're preschool to 12th grade building, and it was a
Yeah.
little overwhelming, thinking about, like, are we going to be able to keep up with this? Are we going to be able
No.
to sustain this? And I told my associate, I said, we just, this is new for all of us, and
Yep.
just have
Ask me in a month. We'll see. We'll see where we're at in a month.
I told Diana it's gonna be a good workout for us.
Yeah,
So
we're getting a lot of steps.
that continued, yeah, work too. So the making that you do, that's what I
Yeah.
also, was in my head, because for me as a librarian, even though we're back at school with our kids, a lot of the materials that we use are coming to the library or going into the classroom. We can't
Hmm.
do right now because of the sharing of materials, and
Yeah.
that's been hard for me, to kind of
Oh,
wrap
yeah.
my head around how to continue that. And we did some making this week. It's dot day coming up, and so we've started like a rock project that we're going to hide around town, and
That's
making
awesome.
paper dots. But what are some ideas, like, as you think about like the maker spaces, to send home and things?
Yeah, it's so one of the we do a lot of digital fabrication with our 3D printers, our laser cutter, and that kind of stuff, and our wood miller. And so I have a core of 8th graders who were 7th graders last year that were in my Makerspace class that took place during their lunch. And so I've already been reaching out to those kids, and so that work will still continue. So I'll hold Zooms with those classes, and they'll still be able to do the 3D printing, and it'll just be a matter of they'll send me the files, I'll print it or laser cut or whatever, and then it'll be in that curbside pickup where the library books are. It'll say, like, Shannon, here's your 3D model. It'll be in a little box or a bag or something with their name on it, so they can still get those products that they're making. And then the other piece that I'm still trying to wrap my head around, is we have a lot of Sphero robots. We have Lego Spike Prime kits, and I'm trying to figure out a system where I can send those home for 2 weeks or whatever at a time with an iPad, so they have that. Although now that I'm thinking out loud, our kids have Chromebooks, so they'd be able to connect with their Chromebooks. But yeah, we're still trying to figure out those. Do we send chargers home? I'm all for it, but it's one of those district policies of what equipment we can send home and how we disinfect it or not when it comes back. Like all of those things. I think we're in that mode of kind of like that survival mode at the beginning of the school year. Let's just get the kids in, get teaching, get that stuff taken care of, and then the maker stuff will kind of come after. But I'm chomping at the bit to start sending stuff home for kids.
Oh, I know. Well, and our kids, they're so used to using, like we use a lot of like Ozobots and
Mm-hmm.
the 3D printers, and that's one thing that the kids have really been asking a lot about. And so I am too, just trying to, figure out the best way. And it's hard because you want to, especially if we do go virtual, we want to make sure that we're ready, not just to provide them services like on their laptops, but be able to continue that creating. And so I love that you're offering to print those things and get those
Yeah.
to kids. That has to mean a lot, and a lot to you, because you love that part.
Oh, I love that part of it. It killed me in the spring not to do it. I mean, I took on we were printing face shields for the local hospital. So I at least had a project, something to do, but I missed that student piece of it, you know, them printing. And I did have a couple of kids email me stuff over the spring and over the summer, and I was able to print it, and there were families that I knew, so I could, you know, drop it off at their houses. But yeah, I just doing what we can, right? That's all we can do.
That's the hard thing. I know I sent a printing order of 1,000 paper merge cubes to our AEA yesterday, and trying to get even stuff like that. And I'm so grateful that like Merge has provided us with that paper, because being able, you know, still to use like Tinkercad and Object Viewer and some of those fun things. But you know, then again, it's like that, I don't know about you, but I think I'm working double time.
Oh, I feel like a first-year teacher all over, and it's actually frustrating sometimes when you hop on, you know, social media and you see parents or community saying teachers are at home in our setting. You know, a lot of our teachers are at home, and thinking that they're just sitting around doing nothing. And I can honestly say, in my 18 years as an educator, I've never seen teachers put in more time. You know, I mean, my wife is a half-time teacher, and she's working 10-hour days. You know, it's unbelievable the amount of time and effort and thought that's going into these, you know, these lessons, especially in these virtual settings and even in person, because it's still different. You know, we're all first-year teachers again.
I know. Well, and like, are there things that you like? I know for me, I think a lot about, and I watch what people post on the Future Ready Librarian page, or talking to my sister who is a librarian in Amana, Iowa, and she now is one of the first grade virtual support people. Is there anything that they've added to your job, or anything that you have added to your wheelhouse that through virtual learning and the time at home?
You know, the nice thing is they've allowed, there was some conversation about different ways to use us, because I think there is a narrative in some districts that we're expendable, like we're not needed during the virtual. And I've even heard of elementary where they're not even allowed to check out books at all, the kids. I mean, there's a lot of scenarios that are kind of scary. And me and thankfully my colleagues, the 5 of us, our junior high librarians, we kind of banded together and said, this is what we're gonna do. And thankfully our administrators were very supportive of that. I would say the one thing that's different is I've always been kind of in charge of materials, you know, the textbooks, that's kind of part of our job. But my library right now looks like an Amazon, you know, warehouse, because we're the warehouse for everything. So art supplies, anything that's going home is coming through the library. So we're having a material pickup in a week and a half or 2 weeks. And so I am collecting every single thing for every student for the first trimester of school in the library. And we have to sort it by kid and bag it ready by the middle of September to get home. And so that, I mean, I've always done material management, but this is like a little intense. My assistant's great, and we've been putting it together, but that has been consuming, as you can imagine, a lot of time and a lot of logistics.
Yeah, I've seen other people doing that too, but not to that scope. So yeah, but I think that's the big thing though, is looking for what we can do and highlighting the things that we can do as librarians more than ever. And it's so important right now to market ourselves, and definitely to show like what we can do and how we can support. I think that
for sure. And I worry because I think, you know, I'm very fortunate. I have a building principal who values what I do, and I can walk into him and say, this is what I'm gonna do, and I know he's gonna support me. And I know a lot are not. And some, I've even heard of districts where the librarian, I mean, we know the librarians are being cut in schools, and I've even heard of librarians during remote that are just being assigned as a sub, you know, and they're not having any library services at all. So that's unfortunate to hear that. And I know how lucky, how lucky I am. But you're right, we're in a position where, you know, we have to show that value because I believe it's there. Because if you don't, it's not going to be good.
Yeah, I agree. Well, and I think that people listening and just the advice that we can give them and the support, I think that's the big thing. And I appreciate you joining us so much for this conversation today, because I know people will get lots of ideas, but I want to kind of end it with just you giving, like, if there's one piece of advice that you can give librarians right now as they're leading from the library, what would it be?
See, my advice is always the same. It doesn't matter if you're a classroom teacher or librarian, is always remember it's about the kids. I think there's so many policies, so many things, teachers, colleagues, parents, whatever it is, and we often lose the sight of it's about the kids. We complain about something that's going on in the school, and just remember why we're there and what we're doing it for. And every single time I want to do something new and I worry about any sort of pushback, I think, how is this going to help kids? And it works out. And so it doesn't matter what you're doing in education. If you keep your focus on those little ones, although some of them are bigger than us, that's where our focus should be.
That is so true. And I think especially now they need us more than ever. And we need them,
Sure.
right?
Yes, that's the thing. These kids, the parents are saying the kids need to be with their teachers. And I don't think they realize for teachers, we need those kids too, because that's what keeps us going.
I know. Well, thank you so much, my friend, for joining us.
Always great to chat, Shannon.
Yeah, it's so great. And I also have to thank Follett for sponsoring this webcast. And I think that it's going to be really great to hear from others. And so I'm sure we'll talk soon. Thank you for joining us for the Future Ready Librarian podcast, Leading from the Library. I would like to also thank our sponsor, Follett Learning, for their amazing continued support.